I love to read a book and be absorbed in words to escape. Hi everybody, so another book haul. There are going to be a few coming up, I suspect, because I've been naughty and placed some orders. I went a bit insane because there was a Click Frenzy deal going on Bookworld, which is an Australian book website. And I also placed some orders for anthologies on Better World Books, which I'm insanely excited about. So those are going to be coming up, so more book hauls to come, but I will be filming some book reviews and some discussions, possibly some rants as well. So it's not going to be just hauls, there will be genuine discussions and reviews and whatnot. I'm also still attempting to film the damn journal mashup tag. It's going to take forever. I've attempted twice and only got 3/4 of the way through the questions, and I was already at about 15 minutes length, which is just proof of how much I can ramble. It's ridiculous. So anyway, here is yet another very naughty book haul. Building up more Neil Gaiman, I grabbed Neverwhere, which I have wanted to get for ages. This is the author's preferred text. I don't like the rather vomity green that's used here, but nevertheless I am really happy to have it because I've wanted to read this one for quite some time. Also, if you haven't, then try to seek out the recent BBC radio adaptation of Neverwhere because it has an excellent cast and they do a really, really good job with the story. So I am already familiar with the plot and the characters and everything, but I would still very much like to read it. And I got myself a new copy of Smoke and Mirrors, which is Neil's second short story anthology. I used to own a copy, but it got lost in the ether of lending friends books. So I have this new one. As you can see, I'm trying to build up these editions of my Neil Gaiman books, so yay! I'm trying to get into Discworld books. I've always intended to read a lot of Terry Pratchett, but as yet I have only read two. They are The Colour of Magic, which is of course the very first instalment in the Discworld series, and Hogfather, which I had to read at university and was in fact the first of the books that I read. So I got introduced to Death in the middle of everything, but really loved that character and really loved the style of the book. I thought it was a lot of fun. And it's always been my intention to read more Discworld books, but nothing has happened up till now. And I did a Facebook inquiry among friends about which of the Discworld books are their favourite, who are their favourite characters. I know that you can essentially read them in whatever order you please. You can follow along with a set character and just do their books. Jean has done some really great videos on what books to read when in the Discworld series and what her favourites are and everything, and I'll link those in the doobly-doo. A lot of my friends were telling me different things. It's kind of universally acknowledged that everybody seems to enjoy Death as a character and that they really like his books. But I decided that I was certainly interested in looking at the Witches and the Death books. So the other day when I was in the bookstore, I found these beautiful hardback editions of Mort, which is technically the first in the Death series, where Death is a focal point, and Equal Rights, which is argued as being a standalone, but also features witches that we get to know later on when although technically the first in the Witches books is Weird Sisters, but these were the two that were in the store and I just had to get them because I think they're really beautiful. And they're my preferred kind of hardback in that they're cloth bound and there's no dust jacket because I hate dust jackets, so I'm very excited to have these. My cat is yelling at me from outside the door. Olly, shush! Go away! He's not going away. So my plan is, there is only, I think at this point, maybe 20 of the Discworld books out of the 40-something that there are that have been produced in this cloth-bound hardback. But my plan is to continue along with the Death installments. Yes, Ollie, to continue along with the Death installments and the Witches installments in these editions. Yes, Oliver, I know. Interjection from Ollie because he wanted to say hello to everybody. Oh, now. Why are you so grumpy, He's grumpy. You're so grumpy. Why are you being grumpy, Ollie likes Jane Austen. Say bye to everybody. Bye. Thank you for being my special guest yet again. I forgot. I also couldn't resist getting a little more Terry Pratchett, so I grabbed A Blink of the Screen, which is his collected shorter fiction, and I'm looking forward to picking those up because I do love short story anthologies. And I grabbed the Folklore of Discworld, which I'm really, really keen to get into because, of course, Discworld is very much its own unique creation and has its own set of laws and its own folklore that is built up around it, and I'm just really keen to get into these. Ollie! Ollie just bit my hand, how rude. I have amassed a variety of different editions of Discworldian books, but that's okay. I am going to get The Light Fantastic in this black paperback edition so that it can at least sit alongside The Colour of Magic comfortably, because those two novels are often linked together as sort of companion books. And I think at some point I'm probably going to get a nicer edition of Hogfather, even though I do think that the mass market colourful illustrated editions are very cute. I think I'd like to get maybe a black and gold edition of Hogfather at some point. I'm certainly going to get the black and gold edition of Going Postal, because I know a lot of people recommend that installment. They really enjoyed that one. So that was Terry Pratchett stuff with special guest Oliver. Getting more Brandon Sanderson, I picked up this collection of 2 novellas, being Legion and The Emperor's Soul, because I saw a very positive review of this little collection, and I will link that in the doobly-doo in my pants. I am currently reading The Emperor's Soul, but I'm not very far into it. Another Neil Gaiman I forgot to mention, I picked up Unnatural Creatures, which is a YA-ish anthology of stories about fantastical creatures, and the stories were chosen by Neil Gaiman. He has a selection in here himself, and I'm very interested. Apparently werewolves, griffins, manticores, they all feature, so that sounds like fun. Going into some quite classic high fantasy, I picked up Tales from the Perilous Realm by J.R.R. Tolkien, because these are some short stories that I've always wanted to read. The annoying thing is that On Fairy Stories is featured in completion in the back of this edition, and I hunted so long for a singular edition of On Fairy Stories, but that's okay. Having 2 of that essay is a perfectly fine thing. I've really wanted to get my hands on The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. I've seen mixed to positive reviews of this book, so I'm curious to have a read. It's high fantasy, but it's primarily involving a lot of court politics, and there's an ugly heroine, which was the main appeal for me, I have to admit. And also, everybody cites that there is pretty much no romance in this book, which is another fun thumbs up for me. Yes, this is an incredibly ugly cover, but sadly this is the edition that is in bookstores in Australia at the moment. And I can live with it being not very nice to look at. Something that is very nice to look at, however, is The Bone Clocks by David Mitchell. This is the first David Mitchell novel I've owned, and I have always intended to read Cloud Atlas. That will happen one day, but I saw Madeline praising David Mitchell in general, but this book especially, on her channel, and I will link that video in the doobly-doo. Also, I have to admit that this cover is really, really, really prettiful. All the typical features that people have come to expect of a David Mitchell novel are in here. There's going to be shifting between multiple character perspectives and different time periods, and there's like a slight bit of magic realism that's meant to be involved, and I'm just curious. I was always going to read David Mitchell at some point, and I might just start with his latest release, but Cloud Atlas will be read at some point. And because this was in the bookstore that I was in, I grabbed Moth and Spark by Anne Leonard. I've heard and read mixed reports on this one. There are dragons involved though. There's a love story that people seem to have some issues with. Also, I've just read a lot of reports that the characters are perceived as being too perfect, so there's just no real interest or dynamic or growth there, but we'll see. I have to admit that sometimes I do enjoy reading something that I genuinely dislike, because at least then there's plenty of material for me to rant about. So I'm going to try and go into it with an open mind and see how it goes. I want to be able to enjoy it, but time will tell. And then while I was in the bookstore, I had to pick up this little brochure. This is The Unknown Unknown, Bookshops and the Delight of Not Getting What You Wanted by Mark Forsyth, and it's just a tiny, tiny essay on the joy of discovering new things within a bookstore. And this particular bookstore has been carrying a lot of these tiny little pamphlet things for a while now, just to promote the idea of supporting local independent bookstores, and that's a cause I believe in and I feel passionately about, so I was happy to pick it up. Also, it's by Mark Forsyth, and he wrote the Etymologicon and the Horologicon and the Elements of Eloquence, and I love his stuff, I love his humour, I love his style, so had to pick it up. So I also got a very cute little bookmark that has like a tea party going on with books all around it, and it just says "Time to Read" on the streamers, and I thought that was very cute. So that was my naughty, naughty book haul. There are more to come. Thank you to Ollie, who is staring at me, for being in the video. Let me know what you think of any of these books, if you've read them, what your opinions are, and I will see you all soon with more videos and more varied content. Bye!